The Whispering Wind. The town of Sarith lay shrouded in perpetual twilight, its cobblestone streets slick with dew. No sun ever pierced the low-hanging mist that curled around the crooked houses, and yet the townsfolk carried on as though daylight might return at any moment. They whispered to each other in hushed tones, their words slipping away like fragile threads in the wind. Among them was Leora, a quiet woman with a peculiar gift, or curse. She could hear what others could not, the sighs of the wind. It was no ordinary wind, for it spoke of secrets long buried and futures unwritten. To Leora, it was a living thing, slipping between the spaces of the world like a restless spirit. She had spent her life listening to its murmurs, but lately, the whispers had changed. They had become urgent, frantic, and filled with sorrow. It began the morning she found the feather. It was unlike any feather she had ever seen, black as ink, yet shimmering with a faint, otherworldly glow. She discovered it lying on her windowsill, as though left there deliberately. The moment she touched it, the wind howled through her room, scattering papers and extinguishing her candle. For the first time, the wind's voice was clear, no longer a whisper but a plea. "Find the vanishing breath," it said, "before it is too late." The words haunted her. She asked the elders of Sarith, but they only shook their heads. The vanishing breath, they claimed, was merely a story, a tale told to children to explain why the air sometimes felt heavier in the twilight. It was said to be the essence of the world, the thread that held life and memory together. If it were ever to disappear, so too would the dreams and hopes of all who lived. Leora, however, could not dismiss it as mere legend. The wind had never lied to her before. Guided by its whispers, she ventured beyond the edge of Sarith for the first time in her life. The forest loomed dark and quiet, its ancient trees standing like sentinels. The deeper she went, the stronger the wind grew, until it seemed to tug at her, pulling her toward something unseen. Finally, she reached a clearing where a single tree stood, gnarled and silver, its roots breaking through the earth like veins. At its base lay a figure, a man, or at least what remained of one. His skin was pale as moonlight, and his chest barely rose and fell. Yet his eyes opened when she approached, and they were filled with an impossible sorrow. "You've come," he said, his voice like a breath on glass. "But you are too late." Leora knelt beside him. "What do you mean? What is the vanishing breath?" He smiled faintly. "It is the soul of this world. And it is slipping away." He gestured weakly to his chest, where a faint glow pulsed with the rhythm of his labored breathing. "I am its keeper. When I fade, so too does the breath. There is no one left to carry it." "No," Leora said, her voice trembling. "There must be a way to save it." The man's hand trembled as he touched the feather she still held. "This is a fragment of what remains. If you take it, you will bear the burden. But it is no small thing to carry the breath of a dying world." Leora hesitated, the weight of his words sinking into her. Yet the wind around her whispered softly now, no longer frantic but filled with hope. She closed her eyes, and in that moment, she felt the lives of everyone in Sarith, their dreams, their fears, their love, all bound together by a fragile thread. "I will take it," she said. The man smiled, his eyes closing as the glow in his chest flickered and faded. The feather in her hand grew warm, and a sudden rush of wind surrounded her, filling her lungs and her veins. She gasped, feeling the weight of the world settle into her soul. When she opened her eyes, the man was gone, and the tree stood silent. The wind no longer whispered, instead, it lived within her, a quiet hum that would guide her forever. Leora returned to Sarith, and though the twilight remained, the air felt lighter, the mist less oppressive. The townsfolk noticed the change in her, though none could explain it. She became their guide, their keeper of stories, their quiet protector. And though the burden of the vanishing breath was heavy, she bore it with grace, knowing that the fragile thread of life was worth preserving. And so, the wind continued to whisper, no longer restless, but content.